Robots Radio presents
Fresh Tomatoes, the movie podcast.
Hey, I can look at myself naked.
Are you stoned or something?
They tried stoning me, my dear. It did not work.
He likes to create his own sauce.
Well, did you sleep with a man who also slept with Mom and Grandma Catherine?
What? You slept with Dad?
Alright, which one of you sardines called this meat?
Whatever, Major Loser.
Let the party begin!
Hello, and welcome to Fresh Tomatoes, the movie podcast. The final nail in the coffin that is 2020. That's Simone LaRue.
And that's Chad Ekowitz with a perfect introduction.
Jesus Christ, Simone. This year, wow. It's batting for 20.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I think it was the right call to say this episode is, you know what? We're saying bye 2020. The next couple episodes are going to be New Year's ones and Christmas ones and festive ones. This one is the last one where we're just like, you know what? You're boring.
Yeah, we're done with you. We don't know her. Thanks, 2020. It's been something. This is the date that you arrive, see them, immediately make an excuse to go to the bathroom, and then hop out the window from the bathroom and never call again. Yeah. This year has kicked everyone's ass. And even if you've had like a really good like revelations and everything, and you know, there have been good things for you, like great, that's fantastic for you as the individual. But as a globe, as a planet, it has not been a good year.
I feel about 10 years older than when this year started. Like there are not enough skincare products that I could buy to reverse the aging that I did this year.
Yeah, it's been so insane this year. It's like I just feel so emotionally fragile all the time.
My God.
I watched the episode of Schitt's Creek today where David and Patrick get married, and I was just like, I was immediately in tears, like just straight out. Yeah, I mean, I was just done, and a lot of it is to do with this year.
I am 5 seconds away from crying at any given point.
Absolutely. I don't know why I do it to myself, but I listen to like world news podcasts on my run, and every now and again I'm almost having to stop and just take my breath, like catch my breath and like hold back the tears. Like it's insane. Like what is this year?
I made the mistake of watching CNN once while I was on the treadmill at the gym. I regret it to this day.
Yeah, that is, it's not an easy journey, but you know what? This is the Optimistic Podcast. Yeah. And we're saying goodbye. As you said, we're saying goodbye. Back down,
2020.
2020.
Fuck you.
Yeah, 2021.
Frankly.
That's the war year. 2 double pun guns in the air. Pew, pew, pew. We're going to be firing them all year round. I'm not going to bet on it. I was almost about to say I'm sure of it, but not going to say those words. Nope.
No.
Not now. So Simone, since this is our end of 2020, what a shitty year episode, what are we watching this week?
We're watching 2 movies that we did not expect to do well in 2020, and we were correct.
Hey, would you look at that?
Would you look at that? We were right about something.
Yes, and those 2 movies are Dolittle, featuring the illustrious Robert Downey Jr., and Irresistible, featuring the wonderful Steve Carell. And yet, even those 2 big names could not save these films.
No, they could not.
No.
Chad, what are you drinking to bid this year farewell?
I want to say everything, but but instead I am continuing on last week's party line with a warehouse pale ale. Those were the party ales that I told you about, the IPAs that have a very different, and that's the kind of a theme. There is something, and this is for our non-YouTube listeners, the can is pure black. Like
it's gorgeous.
All of it is black, which is stunning. There is something just inherently sexy about a black can. That's just from me anyway. So yeah, it's very, very tasty, comes in at 4.8%, and it's lovely. What are you drinking?
Gorgeous. I'm drinking a nice white wine.
White wine.
White wine. It is a Woolies Shannon.
Ooh.
Yes. But I've also started recording this from being late for 20 minutes for day drinking.
You're living your best life. It is a Sunday, and Sundays are reserved for the day of the Lord.
It's a Sunday.
Is the Lord not blood and wine.
And is 2020 not hard enough?
Exactly. You've got to do whatever you can. You know, this is damage control now. So
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Same. I'm the worst podcast co-host of all time.
You are not. You are not. You are wonderful.
Everybody,
You are...
3 minutes before Chad and I were supposed to start recording, I sent him a voice note saying, shit, I'm still at the bar. I'm running home. I'm so sorry. I'm the worst.
But what did I say in response? I said that you are a crown jewel who moonlights as a badass bitch, which
I
is
don't
very,
deserve
very
you.
true.
I don't deserve you.
No, I don't deserve you.
Oh.
Like you, the way I see it, the way it like it sounds to me is obviously like it's like you're the talent of this podcast, and like I'm the one who like facilitates and gets things done, and you're the talent. You're the reason why people come back, and it's sort of like, oh, that Chad, he always has to deal with Simone's antics. That pesky
No, I don't
talent.
want to be this person.
I think that is definitely the sort of energy we should go into 2020 with 2021 with, is just you just like completely out of control, just having the best time with it, just like, oh, I can't record today because I'm in East Berlin on like a 3-day drinking binge, and I'm just like, okay, we'll record on Monday then, that's fine.
Chad, you are the sweetest man. I love how you make it sound like glamorous that I'm drinking on a Sunday instead of a cry for help.
Look, as a future solicitor, this is my job, to spin everything into the best possible way.
You're
My
doing
client,
great.
it doesn't have. It's like we were saying before the podcast, where you were like, where we were talking about coping mechanisms, and I said it is a coping mechanism, and you said, but is it a healthy one? And the question isn't, is it healthy or not? The question is it or not a coping mechanism?
Am
And
I
Your
coping
Honor,
or am I
it
not
is.
coping? Oh God.
Oh God, I'm
Listeners,
talking about coping.
I'm fine.
Oh yes, no, go.
She says, sipping her wine.
Hey, you've got a legion of people who are exactly in the same boat as all of us, so
That's
you're
true.
not alone. So, yeah.
Fine.
And speaking of just fine, I guess do we do Dolittle first?
Fuck it. Yeah, let's do Dolittle first. I don't have a synopsis. There's no point in having one.
No, what happens in this movie? It's okay. No,
It's silly. It's not going to be the best synopsis you guys have ever heard, because apparently I'm doing a cry for help this week, so I don't have the time. Okay. So, Dr. Dolittle is played by Robert Downey Jr. He is down on his luck and very depressed after the death of his wife, who was a great adventurer and died on one of her adventures. He's very sad. He doesn't want to help humans anymore because all humans do is hurt animals. Luckily, Tommy Stubbins, played by Harry Collett, comes through because he hurt a squirrel. The squirrel is voiced by Craig Robinson, and it's amazing.
it is.
And at the same time, he is also visited by a princess who's not listed in the top.
Oh, weird. It's Lady
right?
Rose. It's
Lady Rose,
I think.
and I cannot find the actress.
What the fuck?
He's visited by a princess who tells him that the queen is very ill and only Dr. Dolittle can help her. He's very hesitant to help her at first, but eventually Polly, the parrot, voiced by Emma Thompson, convinces him that he needs to start assimilating into the human world again and helping humans. So he rescues the squirrel and he goes to see the queen very begrudgingly. The queen played by Jessie Buckley. He goes through, he realizes the queen has been poisoned, and the only thing that can save her is something from the Eden tree, which is coincidentally something that his wife was chasing down before she died. So again, he's hesitant, but then he gets convinced. He's briefly stopped by Dr. Blair Mudfly, played by the brilliant Michael Sheen.
Simone's future boyfriend and sugar daddy?
I just want him to be my best friend, actually. Sorry, Chad.
Oh, right. Okay. No, that's fair enough. Yeah.
I think I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
Look, it's been a tough year. I expect nothing less from this year.
I feel like I've been nothing but clear about my feelings around Michael Sheen.
That's true. I would accept losing the mantle to him.
Yeah. So he goes on this big adventure to find this flower with all of his animal friends, including Polly, the parrot, voiced by Emma Thompson, Chi-Chi, the gorilla, voiced by Rami Malek, and then a bunch of other animals, voiced by, among others, John Cena, Kumail Nanjiani, Octavia Spencer, Tom Holland, Ralph Fiennes, Selena Gomez, and more.
Wow, some big names.
Big names, a lot of big names in this. While he's on his adventure, he runs into King Razuli, played by Antonio Banderas, who happens to be his late wife's father, who really resents Dr. Dolittle for his daughter dying.
For his daughter dying with no influence of his own, like
no influence, but they just really resent each other. Anyway, so there's some conflict there. Dr. Dolittle has to like grow up, get over the grief of his wife. They find the place where the Eden tree is. There's a dragon there. No one knew dragons existed, but there is one. He also finds out that Michael Sheen is responsible for the queen's poisoning, because like that's a whole conspiracy thing. There's like a whole thing where they like clean the dragon's colon. It's horrific.
Oh my god.
They get the thing. They rescue the dragon. They get the thing from the Eden tree. They rescue the queen. Everybody lives happily ever after. His assistant gets to stay with him, and Dr. Dolittle's magically healed from grief. The end.
And yeah, what's your scene? What's your cliffhanger, please?
So it's got to be the most cringeworthy scene in this movie.
Yes.
Which is when he's helping the dragon and he's like, oh, it's a colon thing and we have to declog your colon. And then it's a fart joke. It's a big fart joke. The whole climax, the big boss scene is a fart joke.
It's a fart joke. Yeah. I want to say that I am super happy and I gotta thank you for this because obviously we put in the clips ourselves, so I've now got to go back and watch that scene again. So thank you.
You're so
for that.
very
I'm
welcome,
really
Chad.
looking forward to that. Jesus, I can't understand this movie just because of that scene, right? Like, what the fuck?
Because some of it, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the movie building up is very genuine. It's very sweet. It's, you know, it's got really kind moments. I think Antonio Banderas is really hot in this.
Yeah. Simone messaged me like during the week and she was just like, Dr. Dolittle is a lot, but also Antonio Banderas, how he looks, he can get it.
He can get it. He's like the sad king and he's got this salt and pepper hair and guy liner. It's very sexy.
Grizzly mustache and beard combo. Oh, it's on point.
Oh.
Not only is the king of that country, he's the king of our hearts in this. I mean, wow.
God.
Yeah. How do we feel about Robert Downey Jr. trying to do a Welsh accent for an hour and a half? That was super fun.
You're better at a Welsh accent than I am, so you tell me.
It is.
I still recall with great fondness your Welsh accent from when you quoted Titanic about what's through the light.
Is anyone alive out there?
Please do the whole scene because it's my favorite thing. I still laugh.
I love that so much. Right, ladies and gentlemen, move to the front. And it's like my accent is so bad as it is, but I love that scene so much. Oh, I love that guy. He is my favorite of the whole of Titanic. I watched Titanic just for him right at the end. Let's tie those two boats together. It's so good.
I'm very fragile this week. So I can't.
Oh, we're like 15 minutes in and it's already just devolved into nothingness. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Do you need to get a tissue?
No, just leave me.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, you're back. Okay, but to go back to the point, his accent is okay. It's not very good, and it was a very interesting choice to make him Welsh. I
You know,
don't
there are a
understand why they
couple
would
of
do
lines where he really nails it,
that.
and then mostly the other lines he doesn't.
Oh man. Yeah, it's like overall his performance is pretty good. Like I appreciate him as an actor, I guess. It was more just like it was very distracting having him be Welsh in this, and it felt very gimmicky in itself. Yeah.
It really just felt like he was kind of reprising his role as Sherlock Holmes.
Mhm.
Chucking a poor Welsh accent on top and rolling with that. I think there was also the thing that ruined this movie for me was there wasn't a lot of character growth throughout it. Like it starts off and it's like, oh, he's grieving because his wife is dead and she died at sea, which is cinema speak for but is she dead? But no, she's like
Ooh.
really dead. There's really no question about it. So that's kind of a little ruined. So he's sad because his wife is super dead and he doesn't trust humans anymore inexplicably. So you'd think he'd be like this really grumpy, cantankerous man, but he's still really gentle and kind with all the animals. Like Cheech, the whole thing is Cheech, the gorilla, is really timid and scared of doing things, and he's always like, "Oh, it's okay to be scared," and. Was that okay?
That was so precious and wonderful. Oh, Simone, that was great. That was so on point. Oh, that's so. Oh, he snaps for you.
I only want to
nice.
match Robert Downey Jr.'s Welsh accent. I don't want to exceed.
You surpassed.
And you know, like he's like giving all the animals like these very kind, gentle lessons as they grow. But there's no real sense of like, oh, he's grieving and he's an angry man to like now he's accepted it and he's moved on. Like that journey isn't really clear through the movie. It's just like, oh, he's got this like kid assistant that he likes now and the animals have moved on, so now he's okay. And he saved the queen, which he's fine with, so I guess his grief is cured.
Yeah, it's there's no catharsis really. I mean, there is that one scene after the horrible dragon fart scene where he puts the rings down in the cave thing, and it's sort of like, okay, cool, this is your resolution, fine. And I guess like that moment between Antonio Banderas and him where they're like, oh, I miss her so much and shit, and it's like, okay, that's really nice and everything, but okay, are we just saying we're just paying lip service to this? We're not actually going to have him grow as a person. And I guess like it's a kids movie, so but also the budget for this is insane, so you would want that kind of development.
Yeah, and there was like there are so many incredible voice actors in this, so they really could have done a couple of character arcs within this and really made that work. And they didn't. They just made it a really boring, well, not boring, but like relatively uninteresting or uninspired kids adventure.
Yeah, and the humor is very reflective in this. I mean, there was like one or two jokes that I thought was really, really funny. That scene where Cheech comes and like tries to scare the children away, and then Stubbins like screams back, and then Cheech screams. Brilliant. I laughed my head off. And then you got scenes like the dragon fart scene, which we mentioned, and then also kicking a tiger in the testicles.
Oh, is that not funny? Was that not? I also loved gosh, what's his name? Hang on. Jason Mantzoukas? Correct?
The dragonfly.
As the dragonfly. That was amazing. He was really funny. He always is, though.
Super good. Yeah, we love Jason Mantzoukas, yeah. So I would say that's probably the thing that sort of makes this movie palatable is all the side characters and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
Emma Thompson as the parrot is maybe one of my favorite things of all time. She was so lovely in this.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I think it's supposed to be a story about the animals, I guess. Not so much about Dolittle himself. And that was kind of really overlooked because you do have, like you said, so many amazing actors in this.
Yeah. Look, I think, I mean, this is not just limited to this movie. This is a problem throughout all the Dolittle movies, but it's a world building problem because, right, you have this guy who can communicate with animals, which therefore means that animals are provably sentient. They have whole inner worlds and feelings and thoughts and stuff. Which raises a lot of ethical and moral questions around eating them and hunting them and exploiting them, which anyway, we should have a lot of ethical and moral questions around that. But the movies always ignore that because obviously they don't want to make kids uncomfortable about eating chicken nuggets. And it's more so in this movie because his assistant, like the little boy, teaches himself how to talk to animals. So it's clearly not like a magical trait or, you know, an innate ability. It's something that anybody can learn to do if you've got the will and the patience. So what they're saying is, in this universe, anyone can learn to talk to animals, and all animals have sentient inner worlds, and they're just as human as any other human out there. But don't ask too many questions.
Yeah. One guy did it. Another small child could kind of do it. And we want to kill the queen and continue to eat things. So we're going to do what we want. But then again, let's be honest about, like, you know, I think this year has shown us that even though we know something to be wrong, doesn't mean we're going to fix it. That's been pretty fucking clear. So.
Wasn't it fun to see Michael Sheen as a bad guy?
I love seeing Michael Sheen as a bad guy. That whole scene with the telescopes and his like inept first mate was just one of my favorite things of all time. It's all great. And yeah, I love Michael Sheen. I love him all in black. That was kind of sexy.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. I appreciate him. Yeah.
And you know what? I hope he gave Robert Downey Jr. pointers on his Welsh accent.
That must have been very offensive for Michael Sheen, who is in fact Welsh. I can just imagine them on set and Michael Sheen's just sitting there, and then Robert Downey Jr. is doing a scene and he's just like, hooty hoo, I'm Welsh, hooty hoo. And Michael Sheen's just ready to stab him in the face.
Furious. To be fair, like I said, one or two lines Robert Downey Jr. nailed, and I have to assume that Michael Sheen helped him with those lines.
Yes. Is there anything else that you enjoyed about this movie?
You know what? This actually gave me, ironically, a lot of appreciation for the Welsh accent.
Okay.
It's fun. It's a very caring, nurturing accent in this, or at least that's what Robbie Downey Jr. At least that's what Robert Downey Jr. channeled it into. Yeah, it was kind of fun. It was kind of nurturing. You were like, oh, he really cares. I also enjoyed, I think visually, a lot of the CGI was good. Sometimes it was very bad. Sometimes you could really tell that someone was not actually in the scene and they were CGI'd in later.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely,
It's very much an adventure movie, and you just have to roll with that. Were the fart jokes at the end necessary?
No.
No.
From a dragon. I think that's what really annoyed me about it. Okay, so they put this Chekhov's gun right in the beginning about dragons, and it's like, okay, cool. So there's going to be a dragon in the end. We all know that now. Sick. Cool. Yeah. And then this majestic beast. Everyone loves dragons. Like, you've never come across a person who's just like, nah, you know what? Not feeling dragons. Don't like the crazy mythical beast. Yeah. Not a fan. Yeah. So, and then you're like, cool. She's the dragon has constipation, and we're gonna get it out of her. That's cool. Thanks. Let's just tarnish the name of dragon forever.
Go up inside the dragon.
Yeah. which was sad. But I completely agree with you about the Welsh accent. It is actually, you know, despite Robert Downey Jr.'s accent, just the Welsh accent in its entirety is just a very soft, caring
Yeah,
accent.
totally.
And when you go to Wales, it's the same vibe. Like, no one is mean there. It is so very kind, and
that's nice
just
to
the
know.
nicest place. Yeah, well, if you want to go to the best of England, I guess it's not England. If you want to go to the best of the United Kingdom, you need to go to Wales first, because they'll just make you so happy, and then just go home. Like, just understand that
Don't
that's
do
going
the
to be your
rest.
experience. Don't go to England. It's a mistake. You'll regret it.
Okay, fair enough.
So what is your scene that could have saved this?
For me, Dr. Doolittle's character arc is
Mhm.
not very concise.
Yeah.
Because I think initially what they show is his problem isn't necessarily that he's grieving his wife.
Mhm.
They try to make it that's his problem, but through dialogue and stuff, what he actually says is that he doesn't trust humans because humans mistreat animals, which is
Mhm.
valid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he doesn't want to help humans, he wants to help animals. And that's the thing, like his assistant shows up, he's like got this injured squirrel and he's like, oh, how did the squirrel get hurt? And the kid's like, it was me.
I
And he's like,
shot
wow,
some.
that's interesting. So it's really more of a mistrust of humans than it is grief for his wife. So that's already like pretty ambiguous. Like those are two big topics for the character to grapple with, and that's a lot to put in a kids movie. And throughout the series, it's really not super well written that this is a grieving, mistrustful, angry man.
Mhm.
Because he's still very patient with the animals. He doesn't lose his temper with the animals. He barely loses his temper with the kid. Like he
Yeah.
kind of shows sort of an ambivalence towards the kids.
Yeah.
But he's not like angry towards them. And again, he's very patient with the animals. I think I would have appreciated more if he showed a bit of impatience. Like he's grieving, he's angry, he's full of rage. If like, you know,
Mhm.
Cheech fucked up the one mission, the gorilla, because he couldn't do what needed to be done. And it would have been interesting to see like Dr. Dolittle sort of explode at him a bit and everyone's like, whoa,
Yeah.
what the fuck, dude?
Absolutely.
And go from there, and he realizes like he can't carry this rage inside of him all the
Mm.
time. Especially he has that moment with his late wife's father where the father's like, listen, I hate you, but I really want to carry on my wife's or my daughter's legacy. There's not a lot of growth from that scene, and that's a very
No.
powerful scene.
Huge. Yeah.
And it should be this whole journey so that by the time he gets to the dragon, I don't think it should have necessarily been a colon cleanse that helps the dragon, but it should be a moment where he realizes that kindness and gentleness and acceptance is the way forward for him. Like
Yeah.
it would have been a much more powerful moment if he hadn't shown those traits before and he'd learned those traits before. And by the time he gets there, I don't know, maybe the dragon's stressed, so it's got like a sore back or something, or like it can't fly because it's full of grief, you know, a better
Yeah.
metaphor than a blocked colon.
Yeah.
So that like, you know, his journey just makes a little more sense and he learns kindness and
Absolutely.
patience and understanding again. It just, I don't know, his arc was weird. It didn't make a
Yeah.
lot of sense. And even by the end of the movie, you're like, okay, so he's still grieving, right? Because there was no
Yeah.
real scene that indicated he wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where's the bow? Like,
Yeah.
how do we tie this thing up?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
You're
Yeah.
100% right. Yeah. Yeah, I also thought it would be worth mentioning. I completely forgot to mention this either. He's a vet essentially, but the Queen's just like, yeah, that's who I want my doctor to be.
Yeah.
I want this guy, not you know, a human doctor. I'm admittedly her human doctor is trying to kill her, but
Fair enough.
even so, next port of call is usually not a vet. You know, that's not who you
Yeah.
go to for a second opinion. Yeah. But yeah, you're 100% right. This movie would have been so much better if there was just like a nice, clean
I think there were just
resolution.
a lot of people working on the script and a lot of rewrites and reshoots and stuff. And
Right,
maybe the
okay.
original message got lost.
That would make sense.
Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't tell a cohesive character story. It tells a fine adventure story, I guess. But
It is a pure call to action. And
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
But it could be better.
Definitely. For my scene that could have saved it,
Yes.
I'm gonna say, very much like 2020, just double down on it. Fuck it. Let's just have dragons farting everywhere. Let's just straight
Dragon
from the
farts
beginning.
are the main problem
dragons-
in this world.
Yeah. Let's just make it a thing where we're just having dragon farts from the beginning. Just say, fuck it. We're going to ruin the end of this movie anyway. So we might as well ruin the beginning of this movie and the middle of this movie and just have dragon farts everywhere because we obviously do not care about the work that we produce anymore. So fuck it.
Yeah.
Dragon farts.
Lean in.
Lean in, guys. And would you watch it again?
No.
Yeah.
I think this
that's,
movie is appropriate for the 3 to 5 age category.
mhm.
Like, it's colorful and it's fun and it's silly, so that's great for like little kids to watch and keep them distracted with the bright colors on the screen while the grown-ups talk.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a very
Yeah.
good point. Yeah. I think I would watch the old Dolittle rather. If it was a gun to my head situation, they were like, you have to watch
Yeah.
Dolittle. I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna watch the old one because
With,
at least Eddie Murphy
Eddie
makes
Murphy.
it hilarious. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that first one, I don't think I ever watched like 2, and I think there was a 3, but 1 was just on point. It was really funny. And I kind of want to go back and revisit it just to see whether it holds up or not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Simone, shall we talk politics?
I think maybe it's important to put a disclaimer here before we get into this, which is that we're both outsiders. We're not experts on politics, specifically not American politics. This is a very specific perspective, which is as outsiders who do their utmost to ignore American politics and yet can't.
No, it inserts itself like a virus into
Yeah.
everyone's lives. So, I mean, I guess that's what happens when you
Yeah.
are called the leader of the free world. You have no choice but to insert yourself into
Yeah.
everyone else's lives. But
So we're
whatever,
not
it's fine.
pretending to be the most knowledgeable. We're not pretending to be the biggest experts.
No.
I think this is just going to be our takes, and you guys just need to take them as such. We're not right.
Yeah.
We might not be wrong. We might be wrong.
Exactly. It's more of a case of, I think we had to get involved in American politics this year, not because it was an issue of Republicans versus Democrats. It was a democracy versus fascism.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the only reason we kind of got involved. Otherwise, we would not put our foot in the ring.
Totally.
That's your business. But
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. All right, let's talk about Steve Carell doing some funny shit. So, after the crushing defeat of 2016, where man-baby Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton in the Electoral College, the Democratic Party was left to lick their wounds and try and decipher how they would win back the Rust Belt, and more specifically, the swing state of Wisconsin. Leading this charge is Gary Zimmer, played by Steve Carell. He's the Democratic Party's head of election PR. One day, when one of his underlings comes to him with a YouTube viral video, it's this guy from the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, standing up at a town hall meeting, shouting at the Republican mayor and pontificating strong values of unity, togetherness, and moral upstanding. This gives Gary an idea. Let's go down to this small town in Wisconsin and get this guy to run as the Democratic Party's mayor. This, in Gary's mind, would be the pebble that starts the blue avalanche that will turn Wisconsin in the next election. So Gary heads down to go and speak with this guy. On his first night, he meets a whole bunch of colorful characters with their Midwestern charm and civilities. They are the epitome of middle America and exactly the type of demographic that Gary wants to secure in the hopes of winning the 2020 election. The next day, he goes to meet this YouTube sensation. His name is Colonel Jack Hastings, played by Chris Cooper. Whilst trying to talk to Jack and convince him to switch to the Democrats, Gary catches a glimpse of Jack's daughter, Diana, played by Mackenzie Davis, and immediately falls in love with her. After an impassioned speech from Gary, Jack agrees to run for mayor. So starts the Democratic drive to turn Wisconsin blue. But as soon as the National Republican Party gets wind of this plan, they send in their top election PR expert, one Faith Brewster, played by Rose Byrne. She's an absolute boss at what she does and has trounced Gary in every election that they have ever worked against each other on. But Gary knows that if she's here, the Republicans must be scared. There's a lot of back and forth, lots of campaigning, and it's looking really good for Jack and the Democrats. That is until a huge polling mess results in pamphlets featuring literature on how if Jack is elected, government will pay for birth control for women, ends up being sent to a cloister of nuns. This will pretty much cost them the election and ensure the Republicans stay in charge. That is until Gary discovers that the incumbent mayor's brother has an oxy addiction. He wants to run a smear campaign against him, but Jack and Diana are really against it. So much so that Diana actually goes and speaks to the incumbent mayor to warn him. It's the day of the election, and Gary is now panicking because even though the polls have been open for hours, he can't get any data on who is winning. Eventually, the results are called, and it turns out that it has been a tie. 1 vote for Jack and 1 vote for the incumbent. Turns out that this was actually a whole big ruse set up by Diana to get money for her town. Ever since the town's military base closed in the early 2000s, the town's economy has just declined exponentially. The only time the town sees any money is during election season, and then it just disappears again. She had the idea to stage this YouTube video, get the Washington elites to start a campaign in their town, raise loads of donation money, and because the US election rules stipulate that election donations do not have to be accounted for, they would use the money to fund the continuance of their town. Gary is flabbergasted, but it doesn't look like he really learns anything in the end. And that is the end.
Yeah, that's about right. What's your cliffhanger?
Yeah. So it has to be this scene, and it's the one where Jack is flown to New York and he gives that really impassioned speech about the money, and then it's immediately undermined by Steve Carell's response on the plane.
Yeah.
And I think I guess that's the point of this movie, in the fact that it's just showing how ridiculous the electoral system is in the States, but it did make it seem really ungenuine in its totality.
Totally. You know, I actually, this is one of those movies that I guess was the point where I sort of sat and thought about it for a minute. Because I think it was a very interesting message that people were like, well, the media thrives on painting specific issues as partisan, even though they shouldn't be partisan. Like, everybody being paid enough to live their lives shouldn't be a partisan issue. Everybody, women getting access to birth control that they need so that they can control their own like lives and reproductive rights shouldn't be a partisan issue. And yet, I kind of enjoyed the fact that as the audience were brought along for the ride, right? Because we're so used to seeing this play out in American elections. We're used to seeing Democrats realize like, oh, we're really out of touch with the average American voter, which is very true for Democrats, you guys.
Oh my God. It's unbelievable. Like if you look at how it like devolved in 2020, like if you look at the blue states and the red states, it's unbelievable how much of middle America is red. And then it was just literally just crusts of blue on the West Coast and
elitist assholes.
Jesus. Unfucking-believable.
And I think Steve Carell embodied that really well. And at the same time, there was Rose Byrne, who was just as much of an elitist asshole, if not more, but she knew how to play to that base, right? She was like, oh, I'm actually from this town. Like, I grew up here. And no one could disprove that, which was very funny. I love Rose Byrne. I think she's hilarious.
She was so good in this. She was so good in this.
God, she was funny. I don't know. I think I liked a movie that plays on the audience's expectations as much as it plays on the movies. So that by the time it reaches the end where they're like, yeah, we were fucking with you guys so we can get the money, you're like, you know what? Fair enough.
Yeah. Because our system allows it because, you know, we're
and
able
also,
to just do this.
You know, we're getting a lot of the same media that a lot of Americans are getting. I mean, there are a lot of people in South Africa that watch Fox News and believe everything they say. And anyway, we're not going to go into that. But like, we get a lot of the same media that the rest of America gets. So we're privy to a lot of the same biases and thoughts and this categorical thinking. And it was kind of cool to like have that almost played against you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a really clever message that in this election year, I mean, I think we both said this before we watched this movie, was just it was very bold of them to come out with this movie in an election year.
Yeah.
But in a
It was
weird way, it was kind of necessary. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it was a good look at the American system and how everything has just become so bipartisan.
Yeah.
Like these aren't your American football teams. This isn't sort of, fucking, Cleveland Browns versus, I'm gonna mess this up, but the Seahawks. I'm pretty sure one of those is a hockey team. But this is more about, who you believe should be the governing party. It's not, oh, I'm a Republican, so I have to vote Republican. It's the guy who or woman who
Yeah.
has the right ideas, and we should all be feeling that
Yeah.
way. If whoever's going to be
Mm.
elected has a good policy that you agree with, you shouldn't have loyalty. There's no such thing as loyalty for government. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, and I think where this movie didn't do well, and the reason that it didn't score as highly as it could have, is they didn't emphasize that enough, really. Like at the end, they have this kind of preachy moral message about the news and money, because they're like, oh, money won in the end. And it just ends up kind of being very assholey, which is a very Democrat move, ironically.
Yeah.
Where they're like, don't you feel stupid, America? And then they're baffled as to why people won't vote for them.
We're one of you. Can't you see it? We make these movies that make you feel stupid.
Yeah,
That is so
that's what the
people.
electorate wants, right? To feel dumb.
I mean, there's that great sign after the Republican incumbent puts up the billboard, and Steve Carell goes to his team, and they're all like freaking out, and he just acts like the biggest asshole in the world. And he's just like, oh, what are we gonna do? They put up a sign and it's their right to. And it's like, oh, fuck you, dude. All right.
Yeah,
no one
this
needs
is exactly why no one likes you. Yeah, so they raise these issues in the movie. But I don't know. There's no actual message, really. They're just like, oh, the electoral system's fucked up, huh?
Yeah, that is the overarching message in this. Like, the whole movie would have been better suited if they had done it as a documentary.
Yeah.
If, like, this had actually happened and they had followed it as a documentary.
I think
that
it would have been better served not this year, because this is the year that you actually really have to get people into voting. This movie came out well before the election, but like this was the fucking year where you're like, listen, yes, the voting system is fucked up. Yes, the GOP has done a lot to try and discount important votes so that they can keep being elected, but it's still highly important that you vote.
Yeah.
They didn't really do that. They were just like, oh, the system's fucked, right? And then they left it there. And the worst part was that they have Steve Carell and Rose Byrne, who are on two different sides of the political spectrum. They get together in the end because, like, the whole thing was like, oh, it's two sides of the same coin. They're just using the American people to their own means. And it's like, well, that's not helpful.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a mixed message, especially with that ending, because then, like, what you're basically saying at the end is the issue isn't the electoral system, it's capitalism. Which, I mean, we all fucking know that capitalism is a nightmare. But then you're being very misguided with it in saying that it's just money's fault. You're basically this movie basically says that it is money's fault that the electoral system is so fucked up in America, but that's not the case. Like you said, it's voter suppression. It's resizing and re-demarcating the districts so that black and other minority groups are disincentivized to vote, and their votes aren't counted as much. So cool, money is one part of it, but it's not. It's the system. It's the constitutional way it's arranged.
Totally.
It's insane.
And to then like have these two characters end up together, like their ideologies are equivalent, or their ideologies don't even matter really. They're both just really selfish people, is not helpful. Again, this would have been fine. It would have been a perfectly good parody in 2017. When everybody was very disillusioned about the electoral system and about Democrats and Republicans. But like in 2020, this was not the time. This was
Yeah.
Very bad timing. And especially because both characters didn't really learn anything.
No, not even a
Like
little bit.
Rose Byrne's character doesn't learn anything at all. Like she realizes that she's been played and she's like, you know what, you guys, well done.
Yeah.
And Steve Carell's character kind of tries to get into the small town life, but you can tell he doesn't super care for it. He's just like, oh, these
Yeah.
pastries are delicious. The
Which,
secret is
by the way, is
lard.
one of
And
also one of the funniest scenes of the whole thing, where he's just devouring that biscuit, and then that woman walks past the door.
yeah.
And that's one of my favorite scenes.
Who among us hasn't been there? I literally
True.
had one of those moments this morning.
Oh, you diamond! I love you so much.
I bought a pastry that looked really good, and I was like, I don't know, it's probably not going to be that good. And then Rudy was driving the car, and I was like, holy shit. What the fuck? It was amazing.
A whole new world.
Yeah. It was so good.
That's awesome.
But that was it. Like that was the extent of his character growth. So there's no real sense of also like learning on behalf of the Democratic Party, because that was the big thing, right? The Democratic Party is totally out of touch with a huge part of America.
Yeah, very clear. Very, very clear. Yeah, it's bonkers, and it's the whole thing that like you said, you just don't learn anything, and the Democrats like have continuously failed to learn anything from this from past elections. Like they were just like after Hillary, I guess maybe after Hillary Clinton, because she won the popular vote but lost the electoral vote, they were just like, well, it's not our fault, it's just the system that's fucked up. And then I mean, it's great that Biden won, and I would never ever say any different, because
totally,
like that's just a fact. It is much better that Biden won than Trump won, but it also probably means that they will not learn anything from this victory
they will not learn
over the next 20
a thing. Because the thing is that what they don't realize is it wasn't their brilliant campaigning that got Biden to win. It was just the fact that people fucking did not want another 4 years of Donald Trump.
No,
that was it.
240,000 people dead on his behalf. Of course you're not going to vote for that guy. That would be insane.
70 million people still voted for him, but we'll
I know,
not go there.
That's heartbreaking. We're gonna just shoo that to the side. But yes, absolutely. So you know, whoever runs in 2024 as the Republican Party nominee, like, God help Biden and the team. Because it would be great to see Kamala Harris or whoever they vote for to come the next president, because I don't think Joe will have another
just let
4 years
AOC
in him,
ascend.
Come on guys, let's just do it.
Get into that deep socialist agenda.
Yeah, that is another thing that this movie clearly missed out on.
I won't go there.
Socialism isn't a dirty word, you guys. Just gonna put that out there. It's actually kind of what pays for your
Socialized
roads and your
healthcare is
hospitals.
actually really bomb.
Yeah, I can tell you that as someone who lives with socialized healthcare. It was really funny, and I'll cut this out. But my dad and I were talking this the other morning, and I was just like, socialism isn't bad. Look at your NHS. It is literally socialism. And he was like, but is it? And I was like, people pay for other people to go to hospital so that you don't have to pay for hospital. That is socialism. And he was like, oh yeah. I'm like,
I had to argue with my dad. My dad was talking about unions, workers' unions. My dad's a government employee. Let's just. And he's like, I don't know. Unions sometimes take it too far. Like, people really take advantage of the rights they get through unions. And I was like, Dad, as I was driving him because he had back surgery, I was like,
yeah,
don't you get 6 weeks of paid leave now, like paid sick leave because of your back surgery? And he was like, actually get 8 weeks. And I was like, don't you get that because of unions? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, it's just interesting to me that you're criticizing.
I don't know. I just think it's funny that.
And then my dad also, because he gets religious holidays off every year.
Oh,
my dad,
wow. Okay.
A not religious man.
No, not even a little bit.
3 religious holidays a year. And he takes off shit like Ash Wednesday. What? I was like, Father, did you go to church on Ash Wednesday? He's like, no, I just took the day off. And I'm like, do you know why you could take the day off? It was a union.
Oh my
Guys,
gosh.
shut that shit down real quick.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
And I was like, you're worried about people taking advantage, but aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Oh, I hate socialism except for when it pays for my hospitals and roads and everything else that I get for free. Like, I think it's really funny. Like, yeah, my mom said this the other day. She said it's scary how quickly we forget, because obviously South Africa, we had to have private healthcare and shit. And here we don't. We could just like go to the hospital and it's fine. And it's amazing how quickly you forget that fact, that it is such a huge extra expense that you do not have to worry about anymore. Yeah. I loved this movie. Anyway, I love this movie for the comedy aspects of it, though. There are so many lovely little funny bits that I just thoroughly enjoyed. The fact that like the nuns got sent pamphlets on contraceptives was perfect.
I loved the
good.
whole analytics team. I especially loved Natasha Leone, because she's the online analytics person. She's like, oh, I can tell if they have God in their hearts. I used to say the same thing. I used to be like, the numbers can't tell you everything. That's why you need neuromarketing to really gauge people's emotional responses. So these are like actual responses. People can't lie with this. So I was like on board with her sales pitch because I've said it.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, it must feel like you're God when you have that like level of power. It must be so amazing.
Oh, it's great. It's really, really fun. It's so fun.
That's
loved
cool.
that job. That was that was really fun. I loved I was gonna say something. It's gonna come to me. I believe in you. God damn it, you go ahead.
Okay, I loved that whole like dynamic between her and the other analytics guy. I can never remember his name. Is the actor
he's like,
from
we
that
actually
70s show.
account for that.
Yeah, and he's just trying to save it. And then there's that scene where Steve Carell is like freaking out, and he's just like, I need more Mexicans. I need more
Where
Mexicans.
are my Latinas?
Yeah, and then like that guy helps him do that speech, and it's just like, this is a real learnable moment for you guys. My mistake will teach you. And again, goes back to the whole democratic problem. And it's just like, it's got some really great comedic moments. And I do appreciate that you needed that levity to kind of bring up this really fucking hard story. And I think without it, it would have flopped even more than it had.
Totally.
Yeah. Do you think the problem with this movie, like you said, is that it came out in the wrong year, or do you think it just would have inherently been a bad movie?
I think it came out in the wrong year, and also it kind of missed the point. Like we said, like it's still like there wasn't a lot of character growth. There wasn't Democrats actually realizing that they're elitist assholes. It wasn't members of the GOP being like, oh, maybe we pumped too much money into the same messaging over and over again, while not actually helping people. Just gonna.
Well, that's not true, Simone. You're being a bit harsh. They do help other white men. Come on.
And large businesses. That's true. They did bail out a lot of large businesses during COVID.
Yes, you're being very unfair. As a woman, you're
so right.
You're just wrong again. Sorry.
My woman brain just forgets these things sometimes. That's why I'm not cut out for leadership roles.
True. Anyway, so what's your scene that could have saved it?
I don't think it's anything we haven't mentioned already. Just a little more self-awareness.
Yeah.
A little more like, I don't necessarily agree with like, oh, each side is as bad as the other. One side, again, this is coming from my outsider opinion as not an expert in politics. It's my personal opinion, not the opinion that necessarily represents the views of this podcast or podcast network.
I was about to say, are we going to have to start putting disclaimers into our podcast now?
I'll just put that in at the top. But one side very much excused a man who ticked a lot of boxes for fascism. And one side fought against that. So they're not equivalent. one side, definitely Democrats have a lot of flaws in how they run their campaigns. They have a lot of flaws in the stuff that they focus on. But, one side very much supported a rapist, racist, asshole.
Yeah, white supremacist.
White supremacist who told the Proud Boys to stand by and kept making excuses for him for the last 4 years to keep themselves in power and comfortable. And one side didn't. So it's not equivalent, actually.
No.
And I don't actually appreciate that comparison, and it doesn't feel very genuine. And to be like, oh, the media portrays them as the same, that's such a fucking cop-out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think, this movie needed to grow a fucking spine and show more of a message, and they didn't. They were just like, oh, each side is as bad as the other. Isn't that hilarious? And money wins in the end. And it's like, you know what? Politics sucks right now. Fascism is growing in America. Grow a fucking spine, stand up for something, and have an actual message.
No, absolutely. You couldn't be more right, especially because it came out in 2020. Because I was thinking about it as you were saying it, and I was like, the only reason that it could be excused was to be so soft on Donald Trump was if it came out in 2016 and we had to give him the benefit of the doubt, even though at that time he was
just
a rapist. Yeah, but we had to give him the benefit of the doubt. But this came out in 2020 when we know how much of a fascist, racist, white supremacist this guy is. And it's like you said, it's unacceptable to give him a leeway and say that, like he fucking said about white supremacists and black people, saying, oh, there are good people on both sides. No, that is a lie. And what I'm loving now, and I guess it goes back to your grow a fucking spine thing, is that most media outlets are really now giving it to Trump. Like,
well, now they are that he's lost. So
and that's exactly like grow a spine.
Softest clap for them.
Grow a spine now. Like, I guess it's hard for them, and I understand like the fear, especially because big business owns everything. But even so, like, you got to stand up to fascism. That's not even a question. It's not should we stand up for fascism? We should stand up against fascism. Like, fuck's sake.
There are fucking children in cages at your border. Like, there are actual concentration camps right now. Like, there's no reason to create this false equivalency just because Democrats are like elitist and out of touch. Like, there's no actual comparison, you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like we said right at the beginning, this isn't a case of Democrats versus Republicans. It's against democracy versus fascism. And that's the end of it.
Totally.
Yeah. I think from my side, I wish that they had like kind of alluded to the fact that this was a sham like a lot sooner. Like we've said this a bunch of times with, like things like Ocean's 8 and things like that, where if there's a big payoff at the end, you want a little bit more hints thrown in throughout the movie, just so like you can feel like you're like, oh, if I watch this again, I could catch a few things. But in this, it was only literally at the end where it was like where Diana went to visit the incumbent's house that you were like, oh, something's amiss here. And then it was revealed in like the next 5 minutes, which was a bit sad. I would have liked little tidbits, little hints, little winks and nods between different people of the town, just going, yeah, we're in on this. And I would have appreciated that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So would you watch this again?
Probably not.
Absolutely not, right?
It has some really good moments and some really funny lines, but overall, I don't get any value. I wouldn't get any value from watching it again.
No, absolutely. I think the only time that it would kind of be acceptable to watch this again is in like a history class in 2035.
And talk about all the issues with it.
Yeah, because we know that 2020 alone is going to be quite a history book. If you're tasked with, studying 2020 in high school, that's going to suck for you. Like,
I'm so sorry.
If you are listening to this podcast in 2035 and you are a young high school student, dog, I'm sorry. Like, that
at least you didn't have to live it.
Yeah, at least you didn't have to live it. But yeah, I think it would be really great if a drunk, like hangover history teacher just came in and was like, right, we're just gonna watch this today because I can't today.
Okay, listen, you guys.
And so thank you very much for this week. At least it's over now, and now we can move on to the festivities. We can now say bye Felicia to 2020. It's
bye
gone.
Felicia.
I'm so happy. Let's prematurely celebrate. We're recording this on the 15th of November. There is still a month and a little bit left of 2020, but fuck 2020. It's over. We're done. It's festive season. That doesn't count. December 2020 is actually pre-January 2021.
Yeah.
Let's be fair.
And I gotta say, Chad, in spite of everything, I've really felt the Christmas spirit creeping up on me.
Well, Simone, I'm glad you mentioned that because
Oh no, what's happening? For our non-video listeners, Chad disappeared from his screen and he popped up with a Christmas hat on. Oh, it's incredible. It's beautiful.
it's time. Let's do it. I mean, I have been very cantankerous for the last 2 weeks and very anti-Christmas. But last night I watched the Christmas film and you know what?
You're
the
in it.
spirit's in me now. There, we're in it. We're doing it. So next week is the start of it. It's the festive season as we go into the Christmas season. So what are we going to do next week, Simone?
I'm so happy. This is a little joy I needed before I jumped right in.
All right, I'm on Netflix looking for Christmas movies that we can
get
do.
Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, tell me the names and I'll type them into Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so we got Jingle Jangle, which I do think is actually going to do pretty well. So,
Okay, hang on. Jingle. Oh, Christ, Rotten Tomatoes. I've already paused my ad blocker. Okay. Jingle. Jingle. It got 95%.
God damn it.
Yeah. Hang on.
Christmas.
Holiday.
Was this Christmas Made to Order?
I've got Holiday, which got 45%.
Oh, cool! Because I've seen that come up a whole bunch on my
yeah,
on my thing.
I haven't watched it yet though. So let's do Holiday.
Cool, Holiday, and this looks really ridiculous. Look for Christmas Land.
Christmas Land. Is it 2 words? Okay.
2 words.
It's 2015. 35%.
Yes, cool. Christmas
Excellent.
Land
And
and
Holiday.
Holiday. Okay, this is exciting. Hold on, I'm just gonna
Okay.
write it down. I'll count you back in
Okay.
a second. I just want to write this down.
Yeah. I just want to check one more thing.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of Christmas Land,
Okay.
may I propose Last Christmas? Which had
Yes.
yeah, what's her face? From Game of Thrones.
Yeah, of course, always.
Okay. So Holiday and Last Christmas.
Yeah, perfect.
Sick.
All right, Simone. So to start off the Christmas festivities, what are we gonna do?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm ready. Look, Chad, I not only want Christmas spirit in my life, I think I
Mhm.
need it.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we all need it.
Yeah, we all believe in Christmas miracles, whether you're religious, not religious, Christian, not Christian. We all need a fucking Christmas miracle.
Neither of us really religiously celebrate Christmas. So
Not even a little bit.
I just love the food.
Yeah. I love the cheer. I love the fact that Michael Bublé comes out of his cave. I'm ready for booze.
I love a nice Frank Sinatra Christmas playlist, frankly.
Nice.
Mm.
I like it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
So,
we will be
what's on the
watching,
docket?
Most recently, we'll be watching Holiday with Emma
Nice.
Roberts.
That's really good.
And we will be watching Last Christmas with Emilia Clarke.
So ready for it. This is a
I'm
great way to start off the Christmas
excited.
spirit.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good. I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So guys, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. I hope that you too can say bye, Felicia, to Chris, to 2020. We all deserve it. You know what? This is, you know that like at the end of every episode of Saturday Night Live where they're just like saying goodnight and everyone's super happy. This is how this year has felt. It's been an exhausting episode. We've had lots of scene changes, lots of costume changes. Everything has gone wrong. Ludacris's mustache has fallen off. It's just an absolute nightmare. So it's nice to say goodbye, to end off the show, thank our musical guests and our leading star, and go into Christmas and take that break that we all so much deserve. So tell us what you guys are doing for the holidays. Do you have any plans? If you're in a country that still has a lockdown, what are you going to do to, combat that loneliness? Tell us your secrets. Tell us your joys. What new breads are you designing and making? Let us know all the things. And where can they do that, Simone?
They can talk to us on Facebook or Instagram at Freshmotos Podcast, on Twitter at Freshmotos MP. They can email us at freshmotospodcast@gmail.com. They can join the conversation on the Robots Radio Discord. We're actually talking festive seasonal desserts at the moment as of recording this, so get on board with that, guys. Give us your suggestions. At the moment, personally, Chad, my mom, when I went to visit them up in Pretoria, she sent me back down to Cape Town with a Christmas cake.
Oh wow,
a fruit cake. Yeah. And as you know, you need to feed fruitcakes brandy.
Oh,
but this
no.
was mid-October, and I'm going to be feeding it brandy until end December. So it's mostly going to be brandy with cake in it by the end.
I am terrified for you. When you light that thing on fire, it might
I'm not going to light
just...
it on fire. That is a hazard. I'm just going to eat it and get tipsy off of a single slice.
I'm so excited for you. That sounds
thrilled.
truly wonderful. It's gonna be good. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful end to your 2020. We'll be back for the start of festive season next week. And as we say at the end of every episode, we love you and there's nothing you can do about it.
We love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Goodbye. Goodbye.